Why you talk to yourself. Welcome to Mind Over Matter. Have you ever caught yourself talking to yourself while driving, working, or even arguing with your missing keys? It might feel strange, but here's the fascinating part. Your inner voice may be one of the most powerful tools your brain has. It can influence how you think, how you feel, how your body responds to stress, and even how you remember the past. So today, we're going inside that voice in your head and discovering the surprising science of self-talk. Welcome to this explainer. Today we're diving deep into the science of self-talk. We're going to explore why that totally everyday act of talking to yourself is actually a hidden superpower. Seriously, it's a tool that literally shapes your reality, your physical health, and your entire perception of the world. So let's jump right in. Picture this. You're standing in your kitchen. The morning alarm is still ringing in your ears, and you're just yelling at your missing keys, telling yourself you can't do anything right. Then you glance up, and your neighbor is staring right at you through the window. Ouch, right? It feels like a moment of minor madness. We've all been taught that talking to ourselves is embarrassing, or maybe even a red flag for mental instability. But what if I told you this seemingly awkward moment isn't a red flag at all? Will decades of rigorous psychology prove that almost everyone does this daily? Your inner voice. It isn't just random chatter or some weird quirk. It's actually a highly sophisticated tool for cognitive management. It's the mechanism that separates actively verbalizing a thought. Like telling yourself you need to work on your tennis swing, or that you should skip the crowded gym from simply picturing an image or recalling a dry fact. This constant running narration is literally the bedrock of how we plan our lives, how we motivate ourselves, and how we navigate of a really difficult day. Which brings us to the origins of inner speech. Let's see how this all builds from our earliest years of childhood development. Now, what's truly fascinating here is the timeline. Back in the 1930s, Russian psychologist Lev Vygotsky noticed that children constantly speak out loud to themselves while exploring or solving problems. He realized this vocalized play wasn't just aimless babble. Kids were actively repeating instructions they heard from adults to practice managing their own behavior and emotions. And the kicker? As we age, that childhood habit of talking through problems out loud doesn't disappear. It just goes underground. It morphs into your private inner dialogue, giving you the ability to work through complex situations with a level of speed and privacy you could never achieve if you were speaking out loud. All right, moving on to mindset and physical reality, let's dive into how your brain uses this inner voice to not just process thoughts, but to physically alter your body. You have to understand that your brain is not just some passive camera recording the world. No, it's an active artist. It is constantly making its absolute best guess at reality, shaping what you experience through the lens of your expectations and beliefs and the way you talk to yourself. That is the primary tool your mind uses to filter the overwhelming flood of sensory data coming at you every single second. Because of this, your mindset can literally trigger physical changes in your body. It's very much like the placebo effect, where just the mere belief in a treatment can trigger actual physiological healing. There's this fascinating milkshake study that brilliantly illustrates the point. Researchers gave people milkshakes. Some were told they were drinking the super indulgent, high-calorie shake. Others were told it was a sensible, healthy shake. But here is the secret. The shakes were exactly the same. Literally identical. Yeah, the people who believed they were drinking the indulgent shake experienced a dramatic, measurable drop in their hunger hormones compared to the other group. Their bodies physically responded differently depending solely on the internal narrative they believed. Crazy, right? And we see this phenomenon everywhere. In one study, hotel housekeepers who simply rewired their internal narrative to view their daily work as exercise actually saw measurable health improvements. Some even lost weight. In another study, collegiate tennis players who deliberately used instructional self-talk during practice boosted their real-time accuracy and concentration. By changing their inner script, they physically enhanced their performance on the court. It just goes to show self-talk is a true physical superpower. So that leads us to mastering your internal dialogue. The crucial point here is, how do we harness this superpower when we're overwhelmed, stressed out, or under extreme pressure? Well, notice anything specific about the phrasing here? Instead of saying, "I am going to crush this exam," it says, "Caleb, you are prepared for this test." This is a technique called distance self-talk. By addressing yourself by your own name, almost like you're in a conversation with another person, you create this powerful psychological buffer. Research actually shows this drastically reduces stress during highly anxious situations like, say, public speaking or meeting new people within what psychologists call the process model of emotion regulation. Distance self-talk allows you to step back and consciously intervene instead of letting panic take the wheel. You reevaluate a stressful project. You stop seeing it as a threat to be feared and start seeing it as a challenge to conquer. People who do this actually experience superior health and better work performance. It acts as a form of mental judo. Taking the aggressive energy of pressure and using it to propel yourself forward rather than letting it wear you down. We have to talk about when self-talk turns toxic. We really must examine the dark side here, because this very same inner voice can practice kryptonite. If left unchecked, while positive self-talk builds you up, negative self-talk can become incredibly toxic. When it devolves into this cycle of frequent, excessive self-blame, it actually becomes a strong predictor of anxiety and deep depression. If you just sit around ruminating on your problems, constantly telling yourself you can't do anything right, you are essentially training your brain. You're training it to view the entire world through a dull, painful filter. And here's why that is so dangerous. Memory is highly reconstructive. Your memory isn't some video replay stored on a hard drive. It's way more like a Wikipedia page that you edit every single time you recall an event. Because your inner voice acts as the primary editor of your past, it is incredibly easy to manipulate. For example, in one famous study, simply hearing the word smashed instead of hit caused people to falsely remember seeing broken glass at a car crash. Imagine that. If your inner voice is consistently negative, it will aggressively edit your memories, literally rebuilding your past into a false story of failure and regret. This is exactly why practices like cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT, are so essential for cognitive management. CBT provides a clear step-by-step process for this. First, you identified those vicious cycles of negative thoughts. Second, you systematically replace them with neutral or compassionate reflections. Ultimately, you are cleaning the lens of your mind, ensuring that you aren't being deceived by your own internal mental biases. Because at the end of the day, to master your self-talk is to master how the world sees you. Your body language is a silent messenger constantly broadcasting your internal state. When your self-talk is confident, your body naturally shows open palms, steady eye contact, things like that. But if your inner voice is whispering fear or insecurity, those negative internal loops will inevitably leak out. And these leaks happen fast, in tiny fraction of a second. Microexpressions, we're talking. Furrowed brow, a tightened lip, a rapid shift in weight. They're nearly impossible to hide because of these microexpressions. True self-awareness, which is really the foundation of reading people and connecting with them, actually begins by reading the dialogue inside your own head. By understanding your own calm baseline, you can catch your own stress deviations. Once you master that, you can eventually tune into the unspoken emotional echoes of everyone around you, sensing their true feelings through their subtle gestures and tone. Simply put, you cannot read the room until you read your own mind. Now, I want to be very clear about something. The goal here isn't toxic positivity or forced happiness. No emotion is inherently good or bad. They're just tools. Like if a friend loses a loved one, a narrative of sadness is entirely appropriate. It acts as the vital bridge to empathy. The real goal is mindfulness. It's about using reappraisal so you don't get stuck in an unhelpful loop of frustration over a minor annoyance. It's about becoming an active participant in shaping your experience, rather than just passively accepting whatever thoughts your mind happens to serve up. And honestly, it can be as simple as changing one single word by adopting a growth mindset. That's the belief that your abilities can actually grow with effort. You change your reality. Instead of telling yourself, "I'm not good at this," you simply add the word, "Yet I'm not good at this yet." This brilliant tiny shift in your self-talk instantly opens the door to persistence, learning, and way greater achievement. Your inner voice is a partner you are going to be talking to for as long as you live. It can heal your body, sharpen your focus, and define very reality you inhabit. So the next time you find yourself muttering in the kitchen, don't feel embarrassed. You are simply communing with the architect of your world. Take a breath, listen to what you're saying to yourself, and above all, remember to be kind. Knowing that you hold this incredible power over matter, that the very words you whisper in your own mind dictate the reality you experience. I want to leave you with this final thought. What will you build with your inner voice today? So the next time you catch yourself talking to yourself, don't be embarrassed. Pay attention, because that voice isn't just commenting on your life. It may be helping shape the way you experience it. You can use it to create distance from stress, challenge negative thoughts, build resilience, and remind yourself that not yet is not the same as never. Your inner voice is going to be with you for the rest of your life. So the question isn't whether you'll talk to yourself. It's what you'll say. This is Mind Over Matter. And remember, be kind to the mind that's always with you.